It's Monday night. It's Wednesday night. It's all good no matter what it is, because no matter what, it's Monday, Wednesday this week. You get this lovely trio, your future trio's champions. I'm Justin LaBar alongside the Demon Diva Issa down in Puerto Rico and former WWE referee of 20 plus years, Mr. Jimmy Korderas. Boys and girls, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great. We'll get into the show itself, but every time I get to talk wrestling with you two, I'm super hyped. So at least I'm looking forward to that.
That's the great thing, right, Jimmy? Wrestling, you like it, you don't like it, you like some, you don't like some. But the best thing is you get together with somebody and you banter about it afterwards.
Exactly. And again, it's more to, if there's any critique, the critique is not meant to tear down. It's to help, build. And just, again, and it's also an opinion. And my being involved in this industry since 1980, I've formed a lot of opinions. Let's just put it that way.
A lot of opinions.
A lot of opinions.
Well, you might have your opinions too. We encourage you to take part in the live chat if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch. Of course, Super Chat. Spend that money. That'll get you guaranteed a spot on the panel for a moment. Of course, if you are not joining us live, that's okay too. I understand it's late depending on which time zone you're in. So we appreciate you checking us out after the fact, video or audio only, wherever you might get your podcast. As always, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a nice comment, or at least a constructive comment. Tell a friend, tweet any of us. Let us know where you are, how you enjoy this podcast. It's all good. AEW Dynamite tonight from Baltimore. I kind of debated, was there any major news that wouldn't be necessarily redundant to talk about? I'm just going to kind of skim through some headlines if there's anything that you guys want to jump out at, but I'll just kind of skim the headlines for those who might be, just checking out this podcast, maybe haven't been on Twitter today or haven't been on Wrestling Inc. today. Vince McMahon, the special investigation that had been going on about the allegations around him, supposedly that's completely done now, and they can finalize what number, how many millions it is that's been allocated to those issues. So Vince reportedly done, so we can stop doing the update of what's going on there. So that's something to note about. WWE, of course, right now en route to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for Crown Jewel this Saturday. Assuming that event still happens, there will be a live podcast reaction here on Wrestling Inc. I will not be on it. I think Roger's on it. Jimmy's on it as well. Issa, you on Saturday?
I am. I will be there with Jimmy and Raj.
So there you go. So that, and of course, I did preface it with if it happens. Of course, we hope all happens. But if you're checking out the world news, some scary headlines. So hopefully, everybody's okay. Kane coming under fire today. Mayor Kane, Glenn Jacobs, making some of his comments. Of course, he is on the side of the political aisle, so he stands up for what he talks about. He's getting all kinds of reactions there. So all kinds of stuff to go in and check out on WrestlingInc.com. But nothing I felt that we needed to spend a whole lot of time, because quite frankly is either political, which we don't do political, no need to, or we've kind of beat the Vince Bush, enough.
And there's a joke in there somewhere which I will leave alone.
Oh, I was hoping I was setting you up.
I know you were, and as Edge would tell you, the king of bad jokes decided to sit this one out.
Oh, I was setting you up. I mean, I figured, All right, fine, Jimmy. I set him up. You just leave me out there hanging. I go for a tag, and you let go of the tag rope and jump off the apron.
Yeah. Hey, I pulled a swerve on you.
All right, well,
he cut your scissoring hand off. You can't scissor with Jimmy anymore.
Right? That's a great analogy. That kind of segues us into tonight. That's a great analogy.
Nice.
I like it. AEW Dynamite coming in from Baltimore, Maryland.
You familiar with that place, LaBar?
I've been there a time or two.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been known to have a crab cake, take a shot, and howl at the moon in the Inner Harbor a time or two. It's been done. All right, up next, we kick it off. Darby Allin up against Jay Lethal. Now, we knew this one's coming. They give you a little background, of course. These two have been going at it. Darby's got some taped up ribs. We've seen promos. Obviously, Darby always in a cinematic promos. Jay Lethal cut a promo last week talking about knowing people from Darby's past and very kind of mysterious. And of course, we know that Darby kind of is not going to have Sting by his side. He kind of gave that story last week that we touched on. So that kind of all relevant information is going to swirl around here in a moment. So we start off with this one. They start like it's Brock and Bobby. I mean, we're in the aisleway, we're charging each other, we're fighting. It's a blood feud, and there's
You
a
take
figure.
that back. You take that back right now.
This is why you have to be watching the
Come
video so you can see
Come
these
on.
reactions. You got to be able to see your face when I say that kind of stuff. They're fighting and what have you, brouhaha. Here comes Sonya Dutt and Satnam Singh. They're ringside causing distractions. Jay Lethal does a figure 4 under the barricade. Have you ever seen that, Jimmy? In all your years, have you seen a figure 4 applied under the steel barricade?
I don't believe I have. I think that is a first.
Was for me.
Yeah.
Well, and my only thing is I like these kind of hot starts. I like hot starts. If appropriate in the feud. I like hot starts. I like a lot of chaos. I always harp back to Montreal before the screw job went down. At the start of that match, the bell didn't even ring. They just followed and hit the damn place until they could finally get him in the ring. I like that. My only problem here is they rang the damn bell. So the match is actually going on.
Yeah.
And Bryce is out there trying to get him to get in the ring, and he's not counting, and you got people out there. I'm like, why did we ring the bell?
So why is that different from any other? Never mind.
Yeah, I know.
Don't get me started.
I knew that was coming.
All right, so we finally get in the ring. Match proper's happening. Jay's really got the upper hand here. Darby starts to come back, but at one point, Satnam, does get involved, and Bryce sees it all, so he now throws Singh and Sonya Dutt out. So he doesn't DQ, he just throws them out. And then as he's busy trying to shuffle those two off, here comes a man dressed as Sting and attacks Darby from behind. And then Darby tosses Darby in the ring. Jay Lethal hits the lethal injection. 1, 2, 3, that's it. The fake Sting gets revealed to be Cole Carter. Now, I'm very familiar with Cole Carter. He is an IWC Wrestling Pittsburgh, PA graduate. I'm very familiar with Cole. Had him suicide dive on top of me before. So I pop because I'm like, oh, look, it's Cole. But the crowd doesn't have much reaction because, relatively speaking, he has not had much TV time. Commentary immediately tries to remind everybody at home he's from the factory. But an interesting choice to do a big reveal of behind, like, who's behind a fake Sting mask, going to be somebody who is very unknown to the TV audience. So not much reaction there. Then Sting's music does hit. So now we think Sting's actually going to show up and come and even the numbers, only to find as we're all distracted to the entranceway, a figure has entered the ring in a black hat. He's dressed in all black. It must be the no, he's got a guitar in hand, and it's not Elias. It's Double J, Jeff Jarrett, guitar smash over Darby Allin's head. And he starts to cut a promo. What you worship becomes your weakness. And he calls out all of AEW, mainly the fan base. He has declared war on all elite wrestling. Lot to unpack here, Jimmy. Where do you want to go first?
That is the problem. There's so much to unpack here. Where do you start? And yes, okay, Cole Carter comes out and is revealed as portraying Sting. And like you said, Justin, nobody knew. It went over like a fart in church. I mean, it got no reaction. And now you debut a guy like Jeff Jarrett, which was a huge surprise. Let's put it that way. Why not have Jeff Jarrett be the guy dressed as Sting?
Yeah.
Yes, it's so simple. Something stick. The KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. I think they overthought this thing with all the. We used to do a show up here in Canada called Aftermath. That should have been the name of Dynamite. Should have been entitled this week, Aftermath, because this was the first match that had Aftermath afterward. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, Issa kind of, Cole Carter already has like an uphill battle. He's a new guy. You're trying to get on TV. Young guy, I always love young guys on TV. But in a matter of moments, you forgot that. I mean, yeah, he's standing there with the group, but in a matter of moments, you forgot about his debut because it just got overshadowed by the 2-time Hall of Famer, 12-time world champion, man that's been in the business with his family since 1946, Jeff Jarrett. To Jimmy's point, why did Jarrett just not come out? Why didn't he come out as a Sting character?
1000%. And they failed to go to commercial break also. So you went into a Moxley promo. Like, it was so much happening that you never had time to process everything that you just saw. But yeah, that Sting reveal was, oh my God. It gave me flashbacks on when they debuted the big guy. What's his name? when they turned the lights off for him and he showed up and nobody. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so when it gave me flashbacks on when they debuted him and he went in the complete opposite direction. Now the match itself, I was actually, when I looked at tonight's card, I thought this is the only match, even though we've seen it before, it had a storyline behind it. Everything else kind of felt like thrown together this week, where we have seen Darby Allin get put under that garage door and get put in the figure four. To your point about the barricade, we have seen a lot of variations of this figure four and how Jay Lethal can apply it to you regardless. However, Justin, I was actually very surprised that he fit under the barricade, because like the room is like this much. So I was like, how skinny is he? Somebody feed him a sandwich. But I mean, we all know his father Sting left to get milk and never came back, apparently. I'm very happy for Jeff Jarrett. I was here for Jeff Jarrett being here, but it did feel like his reveal was a little, I kind of sour on it because of the reveal that we have prior to it. They try to do too much. I mean, like somebody that I know will say about the potato sack, right? And it all happened between the first 10 minutes of the show. And I'm like, Jesus, like, relax, take it easy.
Well, but you also have to make sure that you're dealing with a sack of potatoes, you're not dealing with a sack of shit. This sometimes borders where potatoes, I can make mashed potatoes, I can make French fries,
you almost made me choke on my Moscato, LaBar.
You can make potato skins, you can do a lot of things with potatoes. So sometimes they got potatoes, and I see good things in the man of it, and then sometimes it's just shit. Here's my other thing. Overall, there was a lot to unpack, and I would have Jarrett just be the only reveal in this segment. If you want to get Cole Carter to the rub and get him with these guys, okay. Doesn't have to be this week. Let it be in a few weeks where Jarrett, his family's been in the business since 1946, he's scouting talent. They're on Rampage. He scouts Cole Carter, recruits Cole. Like that would have been a more effective route for Cole Carter than ripping up a Sting mask when everybody's expecting a bigger name. My other question, I'll go to this, is again, hindsight 2020. We had the luxury of armchair quarterback in this thing 28 minutes after it gets off the air. You got Jeff frickin' Jarrett, who in this year was on WWE TV and was an executive in the company, was part of the Ric Flair last match thing. What the hell else? He was in, I think he was in a GCW show in the Manhattan Center, I believe. I think he had a match there.
Yes, he was.
Like Jeff Jarrett is carny AF. This man gets around and gets paid and does his shtick, slap nuts. End the show with this.
1000%.
Nothing more to be said at this time.
You've advertised this match of Darby and Jay Lethal. It's a blood feud to the point where they're fighting in the damn aisleway and refs are waving and bending the rules like it's Gumby. Why does it have to start the show? Why can't it end?
The pacing and the booking of this show sometimes is one of the biggest factors that hurt it. The way that they book these shows, and it feels like you go backward. It feels like you start on a high, and then it just like it brings you down and down and down. I was watching it on stream, and I was like, "What is the main event? Like, what are you going to? Because this should not be main eventing compared to some of the other things that we saw tonight."
No, I hear you, and to the point that Justin made earlier, or you made, I think, Issa, was right after the match. They went to an interview instead of going to a commercial break. They almost seem intent on every match having a commercial break with picture-in-picture. We have to go to a commercial break with picture-in-picture. I mean,
unless Turner has some analytics that's told them that it's somehow helping. That's the only thing I can figure. Why do they keep doing it?
Because they just do.
Yeah, but it was if they went into a commercial break 5 minutes in, it was a picture-in-picture, like you said, and then they just threw all of these things together where you just don't have time to analyze and kind of like think about what we just saw. I was actually at one point begging for a commercial break so that I could process, take a breather, and move on to the next thing.
Sounds like Roman wanted a commercial break here. Yeah, I mean, I had like more than half of my page was taken up just by trying to take notes of this first segment.
Yeah, no kidding.
Let's do some paying customers. Jose says event moved to PC, time change to 7 p.m. Eastern. Jose, if you're talking about Crown Jewel, I saw that hoax. It was a fake press release circulating around Twitter. It is not real as of yet. WWE is not. Right. WWE is still very much.
The show's still on at the same time at the same place as of right now.
As of 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesday night, November 2nd. That is false. That is a fake news. Let's see here. Sergio had 2. Let me make sure I get does it matter which one comes first? I'll go with the timestamps here. Sergio, big money, big money. I'm sorry, Sega. I'm saying Sergio, Sega. Sega Genesis says Jeff Jarrett was annoying as Double J, then in the Horsemen, then back in the WWF, then back in WCW with Russo, then in TNA. I've been watching wrestling since I was 3. I'm too old to have to deal with Jeff Jarrett on my TV. He goes on to say, Jeff Jarrett is the one man who was a part of the worst variation of WCW Horsemen and the worst variation of WCW NWO. As soon as Jarrett gets attached to something on screen, it turns black. It shrivels up. So quite the history revision.
I don't know if I totally agree with that, but at the same time, that's your opinion. And then Sega, hey, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I think Jeff Jarrett has a great mind for this industry. That's someone who got to work with him and under him and get to listen and hear him. Man, they got hopefully they take advantage of his knowledge there.
That's exactly what I said on my stream. Thank you, Jimmy. I said having the mentality and the brain that Jeff Jarrett is with his knowledge backstage in AEW, not AEW, any company will benefit from having Jeff Jarrett backstage just to kind of like swing ideas with and discuss wrestling with. I think it's a win for AEW. But listen, $220 super chats, your opinion is great.
I'll say this, because I know Sega's trying to be kind of funny and cute in his thing, in his critiquer. But I'll say this: there was a long point in time, especially as I was growing up, that you did look, and it's like, there were a series of times where it did feel like Jarrett was being either manufactured, like they're trying to make you feel like he was a bigger star than he had yet been perceived by the audience, and then when he's running TNA and I get that there is a certain perception at periods of time where it's like the booking does not warrant what necessarily, again, I feel like the audience perception of him is. That said, that's kind of when he was in the thick of it, full-time star. I think now, especially that he's I don't want to say retired. I think he'll probably end up having a match here in AEW, but I think now that he's on the tail end of his career, he's in the the retirement years, where he can make his own schedule and part-time as an executive and this and that. I do think it's obvious, like, man, this guy's got staying power to be part of the business as long as he has. Of course, the family history and knowing, as Jimmy, who's worked with him, can say, this guy's got so much knowledge, he has a lot to offer. So from a live full-time performer, Sega, I actually share some of those critiques. He was not a bright spot of the NWO, which is barely the NWO. He was not a bright spot of that version of the Four Horsemen. He was being pushed as the top guy in the dog dying days of WCW and Russo and those guys. So I can see all that as fair critique, but I do think in real fairness, looking at his entire career, he is somebody he's worth a paycheck to have around. Only if you're going to listen to him. If
the reveal didn't help, though. The reveal didn't help his welcome into AEW.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where it lands. And I'll give Sergio this one. He says, like Mike Graham said, WCW, Jeff broke 1 million guitars and never drew a dime.
Oh.
I do remember that quote.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Jarrett. He got to use slap nuts. I'm all for that. If Jeff Jarrett gets to use language he got to use, when he got to break out of his country music Double J and he got to be just a Jeff Jarrett unhinged in WCW and slap nuts and don't piss me off, and I'm all for that.
Right.
Little Jeff Jarrett with an edge.
Yeah.
I don't mean Adam Copeland. We get a quick little vignette here. More of Delete the Elite. We saw one of these last week. It kind of came out of nowhere. Now we've had a week to kind of absorb and talk about this and think about it. We've heard the rumors, of course. It seems like the Bucks and Kenny are imminently going to return. Apparently the investigation is wrapped up. Apparently we have decided who we're going to side with between CM Punk and the other side. What do you guys make of these videos? What do you think the angle is of the Bucks and Kenny coming back? I mean, it feels like they're going to come back and be received as baby faces, right? Given all that the audience knows right now.
It certainly seems that way, at least from what we've seen so far and how the audience is going to react. And of course the stories online that people are reading, what's true, what's not, he said, she said. So I think you're right, Justin. I think they will be perceived as baby faces coming back and, making Punk out to be the big bad guy he used to be, the guy who sits on the stage and drops pipe bombs everywhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll be received as baby faces, and I appreciate these video packages. However, with Full Gear around the corner and you're only booking one official match for Full Gear, why not rush it and put the Elite on your pay-per-view so that you sell a couple of extra tickets? Because if you go on StubHub and all of these tickets websites, there's a lot of tickets available for Full Gear. If it's being presented as sold out, which I haven't seen, it's sold out by scalpers, because you can't get a ticket to Full Gear right now for $50. You mean to tell me if you don't bring the Elite out today and book them on a match for Full Gear, that's not going to sell you tickets? I think it will. So I don't know why you will wait even longer to put them on TV and get a match on them.
And the biggest match you have advertised for Full Gear, you barely even promoted tonight. You didn't even have one of the participants on there tonight, which we'll get to here in a little bit.
Yeah. I don't like that. Like, they have months to build these pay-per-views, because you're only doing 4 with Forbidden Door, 5 pay-per-views a year. And the fact that you're just putting 3 matches on the night before a Rampage. The one thing that I liked is having months to build these feuds, and it has been a while since this felt like, actually since Full Gear last year, when Hangman Adam Page claimed the title from Omega. That felt like a long story that had it coming, but it just felt like recently, the last few pay-per-views, the matches have been put together in the last 2 weeks. What is the point then?
Yeah. One more from Sega. He's making it rain, and I think he's going to drop the subject. He says, Jimmy, great mind, good in the ring, never over on screen. He knows how to get in with the right people, and he has good ideas, but the character has never been as over as he's been pushed. Of course, talking again about Jeff Jarrett.
Okay, I get your point, Sega. But then again, like I said, I wasn't talking about how over he was, how much money he drew. I'm talking about the mind of this guy. He is very, very smart, which surprised me that he went along with what was presented tonight. I thought maybe he might have had, I don't know if he had any input in it, or they decided they wanted to go in that direction. But like we've been saying, he could have been debuted a little better than he was tonight.
And that's what makes you wonder. Maybe he gave the input of like, hey, why don't you, but this is maybe too many, but who knows? Maybe he got overruled. That's the thing. It's like I said earlier, it's great to have a guy like this around, but you got to listen to him. So that's the thing. Tony Khan can have as many smart people around him. He's got to listen to him.
Exactly.
So we'll see.
You really think they're going to talk him out of a segment with 10 people in the ring at the end of it? Because that's what happens at the end of every segment in AEW. So,
are you reading my notes there, Issa? It's like after.
No, I'm just drinking wine. So your notes are my brain on wine, apparently.
There you go. Yeah, that's why I'm saying they should, it should be AEW Dynamite Aftermath, because there's always aftermath after every match.
I like that. Your thoughts are me is my mind on wine. That's great.
Yeah. Nice.
That's great. All right. Well, we get Jon Moxley in this world title eliminators match, which means obviously if the challenger wins, then he gets the chance at the world title. It's Moxley up against Lee Moriarty, and Moxley does have Regal coming through the crowd for the first time ever. That's because Moriarty, he's going to have Ethan Page on commentary up at the stage, so they keep Regal down ringside. No, I mean, the biggest story of this match was the fact that the Baltimore Ravens walked through the crowd and Lamar Jackson got MVP and pay Lamar chance. So that was kind of the focus in this match overall. Ultimately, though, Moxley will get the win via tap out. Ethan Page is
the world champion on the second match on the card.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you turn Moxley's reign into.
Well, and then Ethan Page comes down, and so the numbers, they beat down Moxley, and so this is your time. You think where MJF? We were gonna have and we see no MJF,
right?
And now I know he got put through a table last week, but it seems kind of ridiculous when we defy logic and rules, and all the other times that we do and that we've already talked about. That this is the hill that we're going to try to stick logic and cohesion on, that we're going to keep the hottest act in professional wrestling right now off of TV this week when you're 3 weeks out from a show that, as Issa just said, is not sold out, and he's in your world title match.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, Daddy Ass got his fingers cut off, and he was there tonight.
Right?
You can't make it there after a table bump. Come on, bro.
Oh, and they barely sell anything, anyways. At least MJF is selling something. I will give them credit for that, at least. But at the same time, the timing of everything just seems so off. And I hate to go on a bit of a rant here too. This whole championship eliminators match is just ridiculous. Look, I'm not a big fan of non-title matches to begin with. I'm a big fan of people earning an opportunity at a world championship or whatever championship it may be. But a championship eliminators match is a stipulation where you have to beat the champion in order to get a championship match. Therefore, you have to beat the champion twice.
Yeah, to beat the champ, you gotta beat the champ and then beat the champ again. That's how it works.
To me, that makes absolutely zero sense. And don't get me wrong, I've seen this in WWE as well. So it's not just an AEW thing, but they've taken it to another level where they actually gave the match an official title, championship eliminators match.
You haven't seen that in WWE since Roman Reigns have been champ. Just pointing that out.
Just go out and say it. It's dumb. It's bad.
It is.
Yeah, I just Roman Reigns feels like such a big deal in WWE, and a lot of people are critical of his lack of appearances, but I think that helps him because I get that there's a factor going in here that these matches feel very predictable. Max is gonna win no matter who you put in there into Full Gear, right? Like we know that. So not only are you going into it knowing that Max is gonna win, but I don't know a time that Roman that hasn't felt like he's gonna win, and he still doesn't make his matches any less interesting, or you don't want to see them, and it's because it feels like a special feature, it feels larger than life. Not even putting him in the main event, and you're throwing him on Fridays too. Like not only you having on Dynamite, you're having on Rampage. Moxley to matter more.
Lisa froze up on me.
Yeah, she's frozen up. Oops.
She's frozen. All right, there she is.
Oh, she back? Yeah.
DC, you got us?
There we go.
Tony Khan doesn't like my opinion. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Right.
You froze as you were giving your speech. You were like very into it. Your hand was up and
I know, but you know what? All I'm saying is the matches feel predictable, and Moxley doesn't feel like a world champ right now in Dynamite.
And you know, I know we're going to get to what was the main event of the night and stuff like that, but here is your AEW, your champion in the second match. It's not even like a crossover segment to the next hour or anything like that. I mean, like it just made it feel like just another match with your world champion in it.
Indeed.
And there was an interview with Paul Heyman a couple of years back, and I recall him saying that, you know, the people that he represents, and you see it in Roman and you see it in Brock Lesnar, they're not closing the show, they're opening it, but they're in a spot where they feel important. And that's the point here. Just throwing your world champ in the middle of the show, it just doesn't feel like it didn't feel like a big deal. And it's not just because the matches feel predictable. It just doesn't. I want more for Mox. And then at the end, everybody becoming involved like always. It just takes away from Mox is the world champ of this company.
Yeah. But we're in Baltimore in Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor. I like this next segment here. I like what we got going on here. A little redundant if you watch Monday, but I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to harp to that because I don't think that that's like a part of the decision making. It's just funny. Renee is supposed to have a sit down with both Saraya and Dr. Britt Baker, but Britt kind of pulling a Brock. She ain't doing no sit down interview. And we will get some more from Britt later. But so this becomes a one-on-one with Renee and Saraya. Saraya putting over her accomplishments, talking about how there's something special in AEW and she really wants to come and help continue this women's division. And then Renee asks about the elephant in the room, about her medical, and it goes through the history of her injuring her neck 5 years ago in the ring and spinal fusion and all that good stuff. And basically says, what's your medical situation? And we were going to get the answer, but then she says, you know what? I got one more doctor I want to consult. A little tagline there.
I get trying to get people to suspense. Next week I want to find out what's going on. But at the same time, here's someone you signed who hasn't got medically cleared yet, and you don't have a rule for them. That to me, again, I like a little bit of logic. And I know that sometimes in pro wrestling, stuff isn't quite as logical as it is in the real world, but at the same
You
time,
asking for logic, not very oozy, Jimmy. This is wrestling. Come
Not
on.
very oozy.
I gotta get more oozy then. I'm not oozy enough.
I'm not feeling the oozy.
My favorite part about this segment was Soraya saying that she was watching AEW and felt that the women's division needed some help. After what we saw later, girl, this women's division needs an exorcism. It doesn't need help. You needed to show up with a priest and some holy water because it needs more than help, okay? That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
she
all I have
basically
to say.
Yeah, she did. She did say that. G. Lee says, "Yeah, how's her helping hand working out?" I'll give it a little bit of time. I'll give it some time. Like, look, for example, and I think she said next week. So if in fact she is going to have her first match back, it's going to be her and Britt, and that gets added to Full Gear, and that helps move a needle with Full Gear. Then I think that's. So I'm not going to answer that question just yet, G. Lee, because she could have an impact. Well, let's see. Let's see. I'm willing to wait and see if it moves the needle.
Right.
Can't wait for them to follow the match of the night and get 5 minutes on the card like they always do on pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's up next. It's time for the Daddy Ass Birthday Bash. Of course, Daddy Ass has got his fingers are all bandaged up, so he can't do the scissoring. And mind you, can I also tell you, this is also when my 7-year-old daughter decides to be in the room and wants to sit on her iPad as the TV's on, and I'm like, let's go to the other room. I don't need to.
Wait, how old is she?
She's 7 and a half now.
You just aged me so much. I remember. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna go feel old right now, but I remember you telling me you were expecting your first baby, and she's 7.
Oh, yeah, 7 and a half.
I need a drink. I need a drink.
So this is fun. So this is basically kind of a merch time. We get to unveil some new Acclaimed merch. They now have the foam scissors, which is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So
Don't act like you don't want them. I'm going to Full Gear and
Oh.
I'm like, I hope they're selling them because I want this freaking scissor finger.
I mean, brilliant. I mean, obviously the classic, foam finger number 1. Then the Austin took advantage of the middle finger. I mean, have some foam fingers that everybody has up, and so that's good. We get some other gifts. Also, the final gift is that the Acclaimed has adoption. They have adoption papers. They just need Billy to sign so he can be their official daddy. But before he can sign that, here comes Billy's real sons, Colton and Austin. And they said even though they weren't invited, they still got him a gift, and that gift was the 7-foot W. Morrissey, who lays out the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. Colton and also come down to help put the boots to it, and then FTR runs them off. So, I always walk away from most of these Acclaimed Daddy Ass segments smiling. I'll be honest, I do.
No, they're a lot of fun. They really are. But again, you got to know when to pull the plug on a segment and not overdo it. Again, trying to. I'm going to try something different instead of doing the potato analogy. We're going to need a bigger boat. There's just too much going on afterwards. Sometimes you just got to let things breathe. Yeah. I was trying to be nice by saying sometimes, but yeah.
No, it's always. It was pretty much at every match here. I love this segment. I thought it was so wholesome. I can't get enough of them, right? I love, but if I'm gonna nitpick, which I always do, that's what we do here. The segment between Swerve and Billy Gunn came off like almost out of a horror movie on Friday. Like, this man has kidnapped him. So when they announced this, even as I'm looking at the card and previewing it, I'm like, are we really going to have Billy Gunn there? Because last we saw him, he was kidnapped and had his fingers cut off like Michael Myers on Halloween Kills. So what are we going to get here? And then he just comes out like nothing. How did they find him? Okay, now I'm asking for logic, Jimmy. Now I'm you.
Yeah.
He escaped the Firefly Funhouse.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll suspend my disbelief for a second. I need to know where I can find this greatest daddy trophy so I can get it for Roman Reigns, if you know what I mean. But outside of that, I really, really like this. I thought it was awesome. And the adoption certificate, I popped for that huge. I like seeing FTR still lifting those titles and teasing that they're looking for them. But I'm starting to lose belief that FTR is ever going to get a shot at these titles. And that's not on them. That's not on them. It's just in the booking how these have gone. I'm looking forward to the rubber match because I feel like Swerve and Keith Lee has put on great matches against the Acclaim, but this is the third big event, All Out, Grand Slam, and now Full Gear. We're going to see the same match for the tag team titles. And it's just like, okay, we'll see what happens, but do I need to see it again? Not on a pay-per-view. You could have put it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but back to the point, Jimmy, about the need a bigger boat and how sometimes let things breathe. I almost wonder if that is subconsciously if Tony Khan keeps doing that because he feels this pressure of he goes to every building every week to TV, and you look backstage, you look at catering, you look at the locker rooms, and you go, oh my god, and you have all these talents, and he's such a fan, so he's a fan of all these talents he has, which good on you to be passionate, but you also have to separate fan from business. And it's like, I think he feels like compelled that he has to get all these guys as often as he can on, or else he's doing a disservice to them or whatever. And like to what we kind of harp on, it allows nothing to stand out and flourish on its own. So,
but if you're a fan and you have all these figures to play with, why are you always putting the same ones on TV?
Mm-hmm. You could tell great stories over instead of having the same players every week, intersperse them. You can have a couple of them on a weekly basis, and then have a week off with them and introduce some other players. And not the way they did with Cole Carter today.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's not the way to do it. It just feels like there's so much talent there, and then. Like you said, Justin, because they're there, we got to throw them on TV.
Yeah. We got some super chats we'll get to, guys. I promise. We'll just waiting for the right time here in the show. So we get a follow up from Britt Baker. Britt Baker's back. She's going to do an interview with her interviewer, Tony Schiavone. She basically says she does it on her time. She talks about how her and Jamie Hayter, they just want to wrestle. So find us a tag team. And we'll have a match this Friday. Pretty plain, cut, and dry here, but we do get an answer from DMD, or some kind of an answer from DMD.
Yeah. Fine.
If they're going to wrestle on Rampage, I don't need to see Britt Baker take another pin. That's all I'll say. I think she's taken way too many losses on TV recently, and I get that we're building momentum for Jamie Hayter, and we finally found out why. She is going to be competing for that interim championship at Full Gear, which is exciting. But then don't put Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter on a tag match that they're going to lose, because then Britt Baker always ends up taking the pin, and that is your one woman that managed to become a star out of this division. So don't bury her.
Yeah. I mean, I get trying to I get advertising them for a tag team match because Britt and Hayter are two of the most over women, and you have this live Rampage at Atlantic City. And so, I mean, I get that logic, but you're right. As long as they win, they can't go into this and get pinned. Either one of them.
Agreed.
Jericho up against a former Ring of Honor champion. Could be any kind of Ring of Honor champion, and it is Colt Cabana. Now, Colt Cabana comes out to a pretty good reaction from what was not the most raucous AEW crowd tonight in Baltimore as the show went on. Colt coming out virtually fighting back tears. Certainly an emotional moment. This is his first singles match on Dynamite since November of last year, so almost a year to.
I wonder why, LaBar. Do you have any idea why we haven't seen him in that long? You don't know? No clue. Okay, just making sure.
All right, look. So first off, talk the match real quick. Match is fun. If you've never seen a Colt Cabana match, Colt, he's one of the masters of infusing comedy, but still being a credible and challenger. Nearly has Jericho beat, but obviously Jericho does have Hager and company out there, so it's basically 3-on-1. So that obviously is let's Colt save face as a babyface, getting this the biggest singles match he's had of his AEW career. So Jericho wins, as he figured he would. Right? He continues on. The match is that. Let's talk about the bigger picture here. So obviously, I think most following this podcast know this, but just for those who are a little more casual, we'll just give you the summarized version. Colt Cabana, CM Punk, former best friends once upon a time, have not been best friends for a better part of a decade now. And then Punk, of course, who we have not seen since his crazy rant that he went on at a press conference after All Out, that he started where he just went on and just buried Colt Cabana and all the problems he's had with Colt, and Colt shares a bank account with his mother, and all this stuff. And Colt Cabana is the reason why.
Shut up, Marsha. Shut up.
You know,
Mark.
yeah. But did you catch two and the
Yes,
commentary
yes,
tonight?
yes.
He said Colt Cabana,
Yeah.
Marsha Cabana's baby.
Yes, yes.
It was great.
So, you know, so basically, like, you know, obviously, you know, and Issa was joking earlier. Why have we not seen Colt Cabana? Well, the big belief was because CM Punk pulled his stroke and what. So it's just so. As we hear that the internal investigation is done, as we hear all this talk of Punk's done with AEW, it'll be a buyout, whatever. As we hear that the Elite, they're probably going to be coming back, you know, whatever. And then, oh, by the way, in the past week, I think it was Fightful, you know, they reported that as we learn more about all of the chaos that went down, that Chris Jericho kind of stepped in as locker room leader and went to Punk during the post mayhem after All Out and said, "You're a cancer to this locker room." And Punk said, "Mind your business and leave." So the fact that Jericho gets to have whatever opponent he wants to have and he picks Colt Cabana, I mean, what greater booking middle finger can you present than this, Jimmy?
Absolutely, and it's in perfect line with how Jericho would handle things. It screams Y2J. That's all. And good on him for doing it, because, you know, hey, you know, again, I don't have a personal problem with CM Punk, but I could see where others did back in the day. And I can't talk about the atmosphere backstage at AEW because I'm not there to see it. But from what I hear, there aren't too many people upset that he's not in the locker room right now.
I love this. On a scale of 0 to getting fired on your wedding day, how petty was this move? or does it surpass getting your release paperwork on your wedding day? Like, if people thought Vince McMahon was a savage for that, I feel like this was even bigger. I'm always here for the tea. I will say one thing. I know people were promised surprises tonight, and when I saw the placement of the match before we got the surprise, I was like, okay, this isn't going to be like a return of Adam Cole. This is going to be something different. Who is it going to be? I scream out loud when I saw it was, and it's because obviously we know the backstage deals, we know what it really represented, but at the same time, I felt very happy for Colt Cabana, who is the unspoken victim of this entire thing, right? Everybody talks about what happened to the Elite, what happened to CM Punk. Nobody talks about Colt Cabana not being seen on television for that long. Sorry, my dog is bullying me, but nobody talks about it. So I was very, very happy to see him come back. However, for the match, another predictable match. Every match tonight felt predictable, and you knew what the result was going to be. But overall, this was bravo, A+. I loved it. I didn't have any hot tea to drink while I was watching it, though.
Yeah, and I also kind of had a feeling that there was going to be some post-match shenanigans as well.
90% of the time, it works 99% of the time.
So this is going to be, I don't think we've heard last of this of this one. This was comical. All right, we have our All Atlantic Championship match. Our All Atlantic champion Orange Cassidy up against Luchasaurus, up against Rey Fenix. Luchasaurus is getting ready to choke slam Orange Cassidy off the stage, and out comes Jungle Boy with a chair shot to Luchasaurus. He's ultimately going to end up. Christian's going to come over. They're going to fight back. Ultimately, Jungle Boy's going to take a big old dive on Luchasaurus. They're going to go off the stage. Pac wants Phoenix to use the ring bell hammer. Phoenix does not want to. Ultimately, Orange Cassidy's going to hit the big punch.
That's what it was. Oh. I thought they had made a hammer to match like their sizes. Like if you're a cruiserweight, you get this hammer, you know?
Oh my goodness, I love it.
No, not quite. I'm pretty sure it was a ring bell hammer, but I mean that's one way to think about it. That's one way to think about it.
Awesome.
More. We can't just let that be it. There's more, folks. So OC retains. Orange Cassidy retains. Pac attacks Orange Cassidy. Just has a hatred for Orange Cassidy. Then Shibata from New Japan. He comes out along with the best friends. That chases off Pac. And then Shibata points to the title. And Orange Cassidy magically produced, I guess, out of his backpack contract. And so that's our match for Rampage Friday.
Yeah. Hey, don't you know that the champions carry them around and they're never mind.
Hey, look, Jimmy, if you're a fighting champion, you got to have paperwork ready to be notarized and signed at all times.
I guess.
I have
guess
a
you
paper
do.
on my wallet every time. It says, you want to fight me? Yes or no? And you just got to mark, and that's how we go at it. So,
Okay.
East has got a business card. It's like scissor me, check
Yeah.
yes or no.
Yeah.
Let's go to some super chats. Malcolm says, more money in the account for Marsha.
let's go, Marsha. My hero.
Marsha.
Marsha is my hero.
Marsha, do that Black Friday shopping, all right? It's coming. You got that AEW Dynamite money coming in.
There you go.
Terry Allen Jr. says afterthoughts are the trio belts. A lot of belts to keep track of because you got two companies worth of belts.
Yep.
Yeah, at this point, Orange Cassidy carries his in a backpack, and I'm not even offended by it because if you're in a show where there's that many belts, who cares? Honestly.
Yeah. Marlon, Justin Lopez will get to you soon. So keep your super chats on ice. We go backstage. Swerve Strickland's hanging with Rick Ross. And then Keith Lee comes in. Keith Lee not on the same page with Swerve. So it certainly looks like Swerve taking off with the audience as a heel. That's probably not what Tony Khan had envisioned for Keith Lee when he signed Keith Lee and Keith Lee's style. So I think this is the attempt to, okay, well, let's not squander this heel heat and momentum that Swerve seems to be able to generate, but let's try to keep Keith Lee cast in the role that we feel he's beneficial of. Issa, what are you on board with this of splitting Swerve and Keith Lee?
Oh my God, two singles wrestlers that got thrown together now are disagreeing. We never seen that before.
Can they coexist? No, but you're right, Issa. I think they're both better off going in their own directions as opposed to trying to put these two together so that you can get more talent on TV. And that's how it felt. It felt like you're just trying to get these guys on TV just to be on TV as a tag team. That's the reason they were put together as a tag team. At least that's the way I not envisioned it, but that's how I felt about it.
Yeah. So off of that, back to some news that we talked about earlier, or at least a person we talked about earlier. Breaking news just off the press, just a little more than 10 minutes ago. Tony Khan has tweeted. Of course, Jeff Jarrett is all elite, and he gives some color to this. He says that Jeff Jarrett is now the new AEW Director of Business Development. He looks forward to expanding the AEW live events calendar in 2023 and in future years, joining the great AEW team. So Jeff Jarrett, it sounds kind of like in the description here, kind of what he was last doing, I think, in his WWE executive role with live events.
Yeah. Jeff Jarrett gets money. That's what he does. You love to see it. Marsha and Jeff Jarrett, rich.
There you go.
Carney's gonna Carney and get paid. I'm happy. I'm happy for him.
I like Jeff.
Oh man, that's fun.
Where are we? Are we at about the 9:30 time area in the show now?
And they went on at 9:32 for the record.
That train's never late.
That's why I put it. I put 9:30-ish. I wrote down.
Yeah.
That train is never late. It is Marina Shafir up against the TBS champion, 40-0, Jade Cargill. Now, again, to East's point, this is very predictable. Jade Cargill's not going to lose her 40-match win streak to Marina Shafir at a 9:30 match for TBS championship. The story here is all surprise. The other things that are going on here. My big complaint is that production couldn't capture any of it.
Right.
Somehow. They got 12 freaking cameras and nobody could take the camera at the right time to capture what was going on. So Vicky Guerrero
maybe it has something to do with the fact that it lasted 2 minutes and 10 seconds LaBar.
Yeah, it was quick.
So I timed it. It was 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah, the stopwatch going. Vicky's screaming, "Excuse me!" Nyla Rose is going to do commentary on the stage. I mean, commentary with a stick mic. She's not actually on headset. She's just there for the arena to hear. She's doing commentary while Jade Cargill is beating up Marina Shafir. Jade almost gets counted out because she's so distracted by Nyla, but she gets back in the ring.
Wait, they follow the rules? Like they actually were counting?
They teased the count out this one time just for the spot.
They got to the count of 9.
That's the first time ever.
Somebody
we should be keeping track of these records in AEW television.
Somebody on commentary made a Sesame Street joke. We actually the highest we've ever gotten on refs counting at AEW. So so she gets back in the ring. Jade hits a pump kick, then she hits the end of the Jaded. So she retains, and then you're supposed to see Kiera Hogan try to sneak out behind Nyla to try to steal. Nyla has the TBS title, which she stole from Jade. So she's wearing it, proclaiming that she's the real champ. Kiera Hogan tries to come out and steal it. Nyla lays out Kiera Hogan, but you don't see any of that. But that happened. Trust me, it happened.
If you say so, we'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I spent longer talking about this than what the match actually lasted. I just want to make sure that we point that out.
No, and again, it's a situation where the production team is not fully aware of what's happening on the show, and that's one thing that they need to be better at, is to get, when stuff like this happens, they have to let the production crew know that here's what's going to happen during this match or near the end of this match. So have a camera ready on standby where you can shoot it, that if we don't show it live, at least we could show it after in replay.
It was a joke. It felt like a comedy segment. It was bad. It was bad. If you thought that it doesn't get any worse than the 9:30 spot, hold your beer. Because it does.
Sheet Black, Daddy Axe's birthday bash reminded me of This Is Your Life with Rock and Mankind. Ooh, that's a
it's a little stretch.
Yeah,
it's a little stretch, but don't get me wrong, it was entertaining. But at the same time, the This Is Your Life segment with Rock and Mankind was classic.
Sheet Black, not to talk down, not to wrestle splain anything to you, because you might be as old, if not older than me, or hopefully you were watching that segment live as that happened. Yeah, remember that segment did like the craziest rating. Like I think that segment was the highest rated segment in all of the Attitude Era. You know, it went on for like 25 minutes, never lost. I mean, the audience sustained, grew. That's up there. I mean, there's very few things that you can like put in the compare. Like I think like Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho, the celebration of friendship. Like, there's certain things that have
Festival of Friendship.
There's certain things that have hinted at living up to that, and also culminated the storyline that was as long as it was, whatever. But I mean, the birthday bash was very fun, but that's a whole different level. But I appreciate the nostalgia reference. I always love the nostalgia.
Nice.
Always love nostalgia. Okay. Hang on, make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay. We get a pretty interesting vignette here. Let's talk about this one. It's a vignette. Julia Hart front and center. We see her burying and wrapping in like white sheets Malachi Black and Brody King, and the voiceover is being done by a voice that it was the most of the voiceover was not. It was a male voice. It was not Black, and I don't think it was Brody. I'm not sure who the voice was supposed to be, but it was this voiceover that's doing all this talk about burying whatever. So we see her burying, like the bodies go out to sea, they're getting put in the ground, whatever. But then the last flashes and flitters we get, it does sound like Malachi Black, and the imagery suggests that he's not dead or that he's been reborn, something. But he's not dead and gone. He's not out of the picture. It's quite frankly, it's the first indication we've got that Malachi Black, who we've heard rumors of, maybe want to take time off, maybe wanted to even leave the company and go back to WWE. This is the first indication on TV we have that he is in fact still part of AEW's creative. Issa, did I interpret everything the same way you did, or did you pick up on more?
I didn't pick up on anything. I was too disturbed by the green screen work that they did with that ocean scene. It was horrible. Production value here was worse than me learning how to edit a YouTube video.
Wow.
It was like
what you really think.
I mean, I was trying to focus on the intrigue, but she went right to the heart of it. I mean, she I'm sitting here going, well, it's got potential in their story, and then she's just
there. You go. Yeah.
You know, I will say, now that you say that, it is kind of like, for my Wayne's World people out there, look, we're in Delaware. They're in front of the Delaware Beach green screen.
Right. Oh, I got to tell you, I'm kind of in between on this one. If it is the rebirth of Malachi Black, hopefully this time they stick with it and they take their time and let him become what he needs to become, as opposed to them, pulling the plug on something because whatever. And again, when you talk about production values, it helps when the production, it doesn't help. Sorry, my bad. It doesn't help when the production values are not good, because it tends to take people out of the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what you notice, as opposed to when you say, oh, that was a great little segment they did, a great little vignette they did. What did you see when the screen, it just takes you out of it.
1000%. I thought it was a commercial for a reality show or something.
All right. It is time for your main event on Ring of Honor Dynamite. It is Brian Cage challenging Ring of Honor World TV Champion Samoa Joe. I think I've said it before, but I put it in a tweet. I have to say it again. Again, that just drives me nuts. Ring of Honor, ring announcer, Ring of Honor commentators, Ring of Honor title, Ring of Honor graphics, Ring of Honor rules, but the referees are still in AEW Dynamite ref shirts.
Right.
It sticks with me. Just go all in. If you're going to go all in, just go. I mean, you
even bring out a Ian Riccaboni on your commentary from,
That's what I mean.
Yeah. It's just, I agree with you.
I mean, and again, if we're already past it, we have to accept it. If you're going to infuse Ring of Honor in the show, fine. You've gone 9 of the 10 steps all the way by doing everything else, graphics, everything else. Well, that's just it's supposed to be a Ring of Honor sanctioned match, so shouldn't it be Ring of Honor officials, at least branded officials?
I hear you.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. Samoa Joe wins.
At least change the shirt.
Change the shirt. Joe chokes him out, as you figured. Again, predictable. But also not the only submission that we got tonight. So whatever. Joe chokes him out. More of the embassy comes in and Prince Nana's guys. Wardlow comes out to clear those guys, but then Powerhouse Hobbs, he comes out to take out Wardlow. Again, glad Jeff Jarrett should have ended the damn show.
Yeah.
Start the show with this if you want.
But again, another match of pretty much all the matches ended with too much gaga and haha afterwards, as we used to say back in the day. It just, every match should be different in some respect at the end. But when every match ends and you're expecting some aftermath after every match, come on. It needs to be toned down. I can understand having it maybe once or twice on every show, but at the same time, when you have it after every single match on the show, that is really too redundant.
Stella Dos Lopez says, how confusing must it be if you're a casual fan and want to get into AEW and then you see all this ROH stuff all over the show?
Yeah, we see more Ring of Honor than we're seeing Dynamite. And I do think that trying to squeeze 20 pounds of potatoes into a 10-pound sack has been hurting Dynamite television. It really has. And you also have to question, why is Brian Cage getting this opportunity? I get that he won a couple of matches on Dark, but AEW got away with the ranking. So winning on Dark means absolutely nothing. Nobody's seeing it. So last time we saw him on TV on a singles match, he was losing to Wardlow. So what grants him an opportunity at Samoa Joe's title? Then we saw FTR defeat and Sean Spears defeat the Embassy. Like, we haven't seen them win matches. So why is he now getting a shot at the title? There's a lot of confusion in the booking here.
Yeah,
Brian Cage, and this is not on him. This is all. I mean, it's not like he decided. It's not like he goes to Tony Khan and says, "This is what I want the result of my match to be." So this is not at Brian Cage. This is at the booking of Brian Cage. Brian Cage is like the biggest, baddest thing you could buy at a fireworks store in July that turns out to be the Gilbert sparkler every time you light it. He looks like he's going to be one of those big mortars that's just going to be explode in the sky and be a grand finale. I mean, and he's like the he's like the ending of the death match explosion that Eddie Kingston had to save Moxley from. It's like
never forget.
I mean, it's little bottle rocket. I mean, Brian Cage, he looks the way he looks. And they've tried all these times to like make you think, make you care, and then it's just like. I mean,
do you think it's because he has the crazy beard and the crazy haircut? Like, I feel you should be allowed to just one. I think maybe the both is affecting the booking. You should either have a crazy beard or a crazy haircut. But once you have both,
well, Well, who knows? That could definitely be a problem there. But and also the other thing too is we talk about main eventing. What should have main evented? Perception is reality here, and the way it almost felt like tonight they treated the ROH titles as being more significant than the AEW titles, and that's how it came across to me, anyways. And I'm thinking, this is the AEW Dynamite, and yes, I hope they get a TV deal for ROH so they can, and I understand having Chris Jericho as your ROH World Heavyweight Champion because he's a big name guy with that title. But at the same time, you're making that supposedly, yes, they're owned by the same guy. We get it. But at the same time, you're making that brand feel more important, at least tonight in the way they
not just tonight.
Well,
it's been a long time since we're seeing more Ring of Honor than actual AEW action.
Yeah. See, this is what concerns me about society. Justin says Cage is trash. Okay, I just freaking said this is not Brian Cage. This is the booking of Brian Cage. Do you think Brian Cage is going to go and say, "Yeah, I like my booking to be patterned somewhere around premature ejaculation. Make me look really big and then have me end as fast as possible"? No, I just said he looks like $1 million, and you're trying to put him in these spots. How did you not hear that?
I don't think you call him trash. I believe you call him a sparkler. And also, it can be premature ejaculation when you save him for the end of the show. They would have put him in the beginning of the show. Then that's definitely premature ejaculating.
Fair enough. Marlon Jackson, $9.99 super chat says, "I got to be honest. Double J, Shibata, Rick Ross, ratings grab. I need TK get his focus on storylines, not ratings. Also, Starks won the feud, but Hobbs has been on TV ever since."
I miss Ricky Starks. I miss Ricky Starks.
Yeah. Marlon, Marlon sent that like a half hour ago. We've been sitting on it. I was waiting for the time to use it.
No, I don't say he's wrong. I mean, obviously, it seems like TK is definitely more concerned with ratings as opposed to sustaining and drawing in a new audience. I don't know.
They always sit steady at the same number week after week or just around, right? It's always between this viewership and this viewership. They're not getting new viewers, and you should probably question why.
Yeah. All I'm going to say is, if they don't get some kind of they better get some kind of big moolah to feature ROH and get it distributed somewhere. If that happens, like if he gets some deal that overshoots all of our expectations for what Ring of Honor's ever gotten in the past or what it's worth, then I think our criticism can only go so far. We have to say, okay, he obviously had a plan and it delivered financially, that he gave this much primetime Dynamite real estate to Ring of Honor and was able to convince whomever in a distribution deal. But if that doesn't happen, what are we doing? What's happening here? Why?
And at one point, do you think that the networks, or maybe not, because you're putting these titles on somebody like Jericho, right? So it's still a draw for TBS/TNT. But at some point, does somebody say, "Hey, we signed up for AEW Dynamite"?
Right.
What are you doing here?
let me give what I think is a very fair. We are all. We're not knee deep. We're up to the nose in it, and knee deep. Knee deep. No, we're up to the nose in the trenches of pro wrestling.
Drowning.
We can, the three of us, and then much of the people in this community, we consume this stuff. We have a glutton appetite for this, for how much we consume and talk about it and analyze and remember. And we take notes. Jimmy's got notes. You got notes. So let's take it to the most casual, basic perspective, especially from casual viewer, TV executives making decisions on what they're going to spend their hundreds of millions of dollars on. The biggest stage the Ring of Honor's ever had was the fact that it was their ring and their backdrop used in the final scene of a movie that was nominated for a Best Picture once. Randy, and I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
Randy the Ram,
the wrestler, which came out 15 years ago. The wrestlers' finals, the big final match between Randy the Ram and the Ayatollah, they did it in a Ring of Honor ring and a Ring of Honor venue, and Ring of Honor was only maybe 5 years old at that point. That's the most eyes that have ever once in one sitting been on the ROH letters and brand. Yes, there's been 10,000 people in the Manhattan Center at this point, and whatever. But it is a controlled, repeat audience that watches and is going to watch no matter what. That's the biggest thing that the ROH brand has ever been in front of, in like the grand scheme of things. And that's what I mean is like put it in perspective. Like Tony Khan's a huge fan of Ring of Honor. He's a huge fan of wrestling. It's like, but is this brand like, why you just pay all this money for AEW? Just buy all the talent for Ring of Honor that you like. Why would you want to have a separate competing brand unless you're going to treat that second brand kind of like your feeder system, kind of like what NXT is to WWE? But in that case, Raw and SmackDown are not giving this much time to NXT. Like, well, why would you? I don't know.
Yeah, it's again going to need a bigger boat scenario with that as well. And like with something like ROH, which yes, you said like with Randy the Ram, that was the most eyes that had ever been on those three letters ever. And ROH had a syndicated television deal. It wasn't like they were on every Monday night on USA Network or every Wednesday night on TBS or every Friday night on wherever, Fox, or
right.
It was a syndicated TV show which was on at different times in different areas of the country.
And sometimes it's not. I mean, and take nothing away. I mean that every deal is something to step up. But like, yeah, I mean, some of their deals you're getting the 11 a.m. on Saturday run.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know when it comes to the casual viewer. I can tell you one thing. My mom is a huge wrestling fan, and every time I'm over there, I cannot get her to get into AEW, no matter what. And I always ask her why. She was a big fan of some of the former WWE faces that you see there. She's been watching WWE for as long as I can remember. That's where I get it from. She hates it. She says sometimes the matches are boring. She criticized how they're either too long, too convoluted. I love hearing her story. She's like, I know who these people are, but I'm not invested in who they're going against. And that's the thing. You gotta see what market. And I don't think also that AEW caters to a market like my mom and her age, right? They're also catering. But when it comes to that, then that market that you're catering, are they gonna know who Jeff Jarrett is? Are they? There's a lot of things that you have to wonder. And FYI, we might get a non-hitter at the World Series, which hasn't happened since like 1956. So, just saying.
Yeah, the first year
Sports
Dynamite,
update.
The first year of Dynamite feels so much. The first year of Dynamite felt like a rock show. It really did, and it felt like you had just new talents, new people you hadn't. With a few rubs of a Jericho and a few rubs, but it was such a different energy. It almost to the point of
it felt like an alternative.
Yes.
They weren't competing. They were something different. And at some point, they try to compete. And that's when the ties shifted for me. Because I did think, and again, I shared this with you guys in the past. I walked out of All Out 2021, took the trip to Full Gear, because I really thought after seeing All Out, this company is awesome. And something happened in the last few months. And I'm sorry, the one thing that I can think about is the Ring of Honor incorporation into the show. I didn't watch Ring of Honor. I've never been big on Ring of Honor. I follow it. I know the story, but it wasn't something I was tuning into all the time.
And like, yeah, I mean, look, the biggest names that Ring of Honor ever produced, most of them, well, one of them you tried. It looks like he's done forever with you and CM Punk. Joe's there. You have Claudio there, but the rest of them are guys that are guys that are made men in WWE and probably aren't leaving WWE.
Exactly. So I think the best bet right here. Yes, I get it with Chris Jericho as their champion. It does make them feel like there is an importance there, but maybe it is time to think of them as their feeder system, their developmental brand or something like that. I mean, as much as NXT, they tried hard to make it a third brand. It is kind of a third brand, but at the same time, it still does feel like a developmental brand, a feeder system.
And if you got away with the rankings, then what is the point of Dark and Elevation? Why not turn it into, you have the Universal Studios settings that you already have where you're taping every week. Why not try to use that and see where it goes? I don't know. I think everybody, like LaBar always says, armchair bookers, like we can all come up with ideas and maybe he's trying to do what he feels is best for him. But yeah, Monkey, Amanda says in the chat, Brian Danielson, but it's just like, yeah, and look at where he's sitting. He felt like a huge deal when he debuted it, and now he just feels like one of the guys.
And like you said earlier, Justin, yes, TK is a big fan, but sometimes when you're the boss, you have to put that fandom aside and let business take over. You have to put your business first. And yes, you want to be fair to your talent. There's one thing. There's a difference between being fair and showing favoritism. He has to stop. I don't want to say not be friends with these guys, because you can still be friends with these guys, but at the same time, there has to be an understanding that, when it comes to business, I have to take care of business first.
Yeah. That's we could do an hour on this, especially you, Jimmy, because Jimmy, what I'm about to reference you. This is the time where you came up, but we'll close it down here in a second. But say what you want about Vince, but I mean, we can't argue. Obviously, Vince had 40 years of success and took WWF into what it is now. I always, when you hear about the stories of how Vince, especially in the 80s and then even in the early 90s, Vince would still be seen out with the boys. There's some famous stories of him, having a few soda pops, being driven around by Sergeant Slaughter, or showing up at the strip club with, and wrestling with the talent, having some fun and this and that. It's like you hear about those stories, and yeah, Vince was still able to obviously fire guys when he, fire an Ultimate Warrior when he's getting held up for money, and it still did business. But like as the bigger things got, and of course as you move towards the turn of the century when the company goes public, and I think October '99. At that point, you really need to separate, and you really need to be executive and not, it's like, and I do think there's something that can be learned from that journey of like, yeah, it's great to have a certain mutual respect with the guys, but you really got to be able to separate yourself and just, and as cold as it might sound, like, if it's what's best for business, you got to be able to cut that story and at the moment's notice. You can't. I don't know.
Or
it does
get
feel
some creative matches to creative minds backstage, and get a creative team and a team of writers that help you write storylines for this big bloated roster that you do have, so that people can become invested. Because a lot of times you get more invested into storylines than you do the actual matches. Like I go back and look at last Friday's SmackDown. What did I enjoy? Both of them were segments. Bray Wyatt and the Bloodline segment talking about being Uzi. That had nothing to do with the in-ring action. But you're telling a story, and people like that. But nothing here feels like there's a backbone to it right now.
Sometimes the biggest fans buying into the power sheet doesn't always Dan Snyder was a lifelong Redskins fan, and look how much he screwed this thing up, and thank God we're finally going to get him out of here. I had to get that shot in there. Let's get him the hell out.
My final shot will go out to Tony Chimmel. Hey, see what my Leafs did to your Flyers tonight. Anyways, that's it.
We'll let Peter with the super chat here be the last one we go to. What type of impact will Jarrett have in AEW? This smells like Bischoff and Heyman, WWE directors of Raw and SmackDown, but Vince was still in control. A different role. Different kind of role.
It's tough to say, Peter, because again, like I said earlier in the show, it depends on. He's a very knowledgeable guy. Jeff Jarrett is a smart guy. He knows this business inside and out. It's a matter of what do they take from him? What do they listen? What do they use from him? Obviously he could give them all kinds of suggestions and stuff like that, but what do they take and absorb from that?
I will say, according to the ticket sales and some of the numbers that we're seeing and the venues getting smaller, I do think they could use some help in the live events aspect of things, and maybe how to sell some more tickets here. So whatever it is that Jeff Jarrett ends up doing, like I said, he's a great mind to have and bounce ideas with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We don't have, all we have is a tweet from Tony Khan, so we don't have full clarity on the we don't have like the in-depth job description of what Jeff's going to be trying, like what are his key performance indicators, business term, like what is he gonna be measured on to do? But yeah, I mean, again, this is a guy who has had wrestling promotion in his entire for 3 generations. Obviously, even with his Global Force Wrestling and with Impact, he was always been very in tune with doing live events and booking shows and getting paid shows and this and that. So I think it's worth a shot, Peter. I don't think it's an apples to oranges to the Bischoff Heyman creative that you compared it to. What I actually, my number one question, if Tony Khan was on here right now, my number one question to him about this topic would be, is by hiring Jeff in this title and role, is this a sign of, in 2023, for both branding exposure and potentially revenue. Is this a sign that AEW is going to start to like run house shows? Everybody touts how AEW's a nice travel schedule because you show up and you do TV once a week, maybe twice a week if the schedule calls for it with a live Rampage or a pay-per-view. Does this mean you're going to start to try to work in some non-TV shows to get into more markets, to get in front of more eyes? That's what I would want to know, because that's a big deal.
Yes.
It's got a lot of potential risk. It's got a lot of potential reward. The biggest risk being everybody in AEW has touted, especially if they've done the Stanford schedule, they go, oh my God, it's so much better not having to be on the road as much. If you start doing that, now all of a sudden you take that shiny element away from things. That'd be my question. Maybe it has nothing. Maybe they won't do house shows. But I'm just
I will say this, Peter, that I can't speak for Bischoff, but with someone like Heyman was always open to people talking to him and suggesting things.
Paul Heyman never met an argument he didn't like. I've actually said that to him. I got him to pop.
Cool.
All right, let's wrap it up. Do some final plugs. Oh, by the way, Issa, I couldn't. We would have never got the show done if I would have took every single chat. But like, there's tons of compliments on how great you're looking tonight. You're sparkling. You're bling. You're popping. So speak to your people.
Yes.
Everybody can find me on YouTube at NYC Demon Diva. We'll be doing watch-alongs for all of the shows. Raw, NXT, Dynamite, SmackDown will be live for Crown Jewel this weekend. You guys can also find me here, Lucha Libre Online, Know Your News. I'm basically everywhere. I'm slowly taking over the world, so just go find me.
Tease your upcoming interview that you could have got licked.
Yes, I had a fun time talking to Luke from the Bushwashers today. That will be up on Lucha Libre Online very, very soon. I had a blast. My dog is bullying me.
Is it on video?
Yeah, it's on video.
Did you at least do the bushwhacker walk?
I did not, but I think he knew that I was very curious to talk to him about his time in WWC in Puerto Rico. So he actually picked the Zoom background that looks like a beach so he could pretend he was in Puerto Rico. It was great. It was a fun time. Nice. They do have a book. It's available now on Amazon. So everybody want to hear some crazy stories from the Bushwhackers' time on the road, go find it on Amazon. It's called Bloodshed and Shears, the Bushwhacker story.
So you interviewed Luke?
Look. Yeah, Butch couldn't make the interview.
Butch, I was going to ask, but Butch's health has been bad. Is that?
He seems to be doing okay. He's actually the second oldest performer, like wrestling performer, that's still out there, doing appearances and doing all that. He made sure to talk about that in the interview. The second, he's almost 80, and he was in great spirits today. But Butch was not able to make the interview. So I spoke to Luke and I spoke to John, who is the person that helped them write the book.
Very cool. Very cool. We'll be looking out for that on Issa's channel. Jimmy, plug it away.
Obviously, like tonight on Wednesdays nights, you can find the three of us here. You can find me on Mondays, usually with Triple J, with Jack Farmer and Justin and myself. And Issa and I will be back this Saturday after Crown Jewel with Raj. And during the week, you can catch me on all my social media outlets with my ref and rants from Monday to Friday. And again, not meant to tear down, but to just give a critique and have some fun and hopefully build up what is a great time to be a wrestling fan.
I love your reffing rants. I always watch them before I start my workouts for some reason.
Oh, thank you.
Gets her motivated.
Yeah.
At Justin LaBar across the socials. Do what you got to do. Like I said, like, subscribe, share, all those great things. And remember, if today's tip is, if you learn nothing else from this podcast, it's that 20 pounds, or actually, it's 10 pounds of potatoes in a 20-pound bag, or 20 pounds of potatoes rather than a 10-pound bag. That can make mashed potatoes. But 20 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag just makes diarrhea.